For more on the Chinese premier's trip to North America, I'm joined by Einar Tangen, current affairs commentator. He is joining us from Beijing. A lot to get to here. We'll talk about Cuba in just a moment. But what do you think is the biggest takeaway from the premier's trip to Canada?
Well, you see Canada reaching out quite firmly across things to its second largest trade partner. I mean, you have to put this in the context of the kind of failings of TPP and TTIP, and it's really kind of a blow to Washington at this point, who's going to have to be scrambling to figure out what is going to be happening in the future. You know, with Trump and Hillary both coming against TPP, it's likely that no matter who is elected, there will be a retrenchment, a withdrawal, and a change in Washington that could very much affect Canada, where the sentiment is quite the opposite. As I said before, 80% are in favor of these free trade deals, especially considering, especially as applied to NAFTA. But that's going to change.
You mentioned this relationship. We saw several meetups in recent weeks. We've talked about it with you, Trudeau's state visit to China, the G20, the UN, now this Canada trip. Premier Li called for a new golden decade of relations. What do you see here? How do you see this relationship progressing?
Well, Canada is a $1.5 trillion economy. China is their second largest. They need markets to export. They're a developed nation, and they really need something like China, India, all of these markets that are opening up in the East. A free trade agreement would be essential to that deal, doubling their trade, especially at a point now where they have negative trade balances. It's very, very important. It's a land of rich resources, but also manufacturing capability. So they're very well poised to be a partner with China.
We just saw our correspondent in Havana mentioning several deals that could possibly take place over the next couple of days. What are you looking for in Li's visit to Cuba?
Well, it's interesting that you have this kind of north-south. It's not exactly an encirclement campaign, but it's very indicative of how things are changing rapidly in the Northern Hemisphere. I think people should be looking at this as a kind of trial run of what the Silk Road Initiative will be bringing to other parts of Asia. What China is doing is building internal capacity, you know, the ability to fund a lot of their own energy needs. Very, very important to Cuba as it goes forward because it's largely dependent. That 4% number is crippling to an economy which does not produce a lot of hard currency reserves. Yet on the other hand, this is an economy, 80 billion a year, which has been growing at over 4%. And they want to keep that going. And China is going to be a very, very important part of that, especially when it comes to issues of agriculture and getting cheaper imports, especially electrical machinery and other parts.
All right, Einar Tangen in Beijing. As always, appreciate your insight. Thanks for joining us.